An Occupy Wall Street protester has been convicted of assaulting a police officer after video footage showed that she did elbow the police officer in the face. Now, this case happened on March 18th of 2012. The woman in this case, Cecily McMillan, who is 25 years old, went to Zuccotti Park to meet up with her friends. She said that she wasn't part of the protests on that day. She just wanted to meet up with friends to celebrate St. Patrick's Day. But cops had shown up just after midnight and they wanted to get rid of the crowd. In the process of trying to get rid of the crowd, things got extremely violent. And when things got extremely violent, Cecily McMillan alleges that a cop had grabbed her breast. And since she felt assaulted in that moment, her reflex was to throw an elbow, and the elbow hit the cop. Now, the cop decided to press charges against her, and she has been convicted. She won't be sentenced until March 19th, and she faces 2 to 7 years behind bars for this assault. Now, we do have video showing you what happened, and I want you to pay particular attention toward the end. She is in handcuffs with several cops right above her, and she suffers from a seizure. An ambulance doesn't come to get her until 15 to 20 minutes later. Take a look.
She's having a seizure, man.
She's having a seizure! She's having a seizure! Seizure! Get her out of the cuffs, man! What the fuck is wrong with you?
That doesn't look good. That looks pretty bad.
Get her out of the fucking cuffs!
Get the cuffs off!
The fuck is wrong with you?
Use your fucking head!
Dude, that girl can't breathe, bro. That girl can't breathe.
What's that? Wait a second.
Be careful!
Shit, man. That's fuck. Doesn't look so good, man.
Okay, so now again, according to Policy Mike, police began violently dispersing the crowd. McMillan felt a hand grab her right breast from behind, and before she realized it was a policeman who had grabbed hold of her, involuntarily whipped out her arm and struck police officer Bovell in the face. And the cop is saying that it was intentional, and that was really what was discussed during the trial. Was it intentional, or was it just something that she did as a result of her reflexes? And it turns out that the jury of 8 women and 4 men decided it was intentional.
Well, first of all, I think that's one of the weirdest Sleepy's ads I've ever seen. But I think that, listen, I mean, the cops and the DA and all of that, they're all in cahoots to a degree on this, and I think that that when you see how disgusting New York's finest were during the Occupy episodes in New York, that it's not surprising that it gets to this point, and I think it's outrageous. I mean, I think that that under duress like that, you don't give somebody close to 7 years. I didn't know actually that the trial had completed. I thought it was still in pre-trial, and I'm astonished that this is what happened, because I would have thought that a jury would have seen this, and maybe I'm missing something here, but she was under extreme duress and reacted as anybody would have, and the elbow, whether intentional or incidental, should not warrant going to prison for 7 years.
You don't really need me here. He covered it. That was fine. I was surprised. That's the surprising thing to me. I thought I was going to have to rebut what you said, but we're in simpatico on this issue. And
Why do you think I'm a cop?
No, but usually you try to take a more measured.
There's nothing measured about this.
Well, I agree.
Yeah.
I feel the same way. That's what I'm saying. We're in cahoots on this one. Whenever this issue of police brutality comes up on the show, I'm usually very over the top and caustic, and I have I have little respect for police, and there's a couple of reasons why. Because they're half turned the screw away from being criminals themselves, all of them. Like, if you know criminals, you know that about cops, that the people who become cops aren't necessarily, they don't ever do it for the right reasons, right?
Okay,
I'll tell you this. Well, let me say this. Let me finish my point before you rebut me. I had a lot of cops email me saying that I became a cop because I wanted to help my blah, 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 blah. I want to do the right thing, and I want to serve my community. And I'm like, really? You turned down that job at NASA so you can spend your days cracking heads of peaceful protesters and writing parking tickets? No, you didn't. You took that job because it's the best fucking job you could get with your level of education. You don't give a shit about your community, okay? Because if somebody offered you twice the money, you would quit that stupid fucking job and you would stop cracking heads for a living. But maybe you wouldn't. It's because you dig it so much. And those are the kind of people who become cops. They go, oh, it's just a small percentage of cops who do stuff like this. Did you see all those fucking cops standing around them watching a lady who was having a seizure and they didn't even uncuff her? So that's what's wrong with cops. And this whole goddamn country, from coast to coast, cops crack the heads of innocent protesters on Occupy Wall Street. So if you're a cop and you're going to email me about what I'm saying right now, please start with an apology for your profession for fucking cracking the heads of innocent protesters exercising their constitutional rights, okay? Because that's what your profession did. And nobody's ever apologized for it, and they should.
We pay our police forces through our taxes. So we should have a little bit more recourse against them when this happens. But to generalize in that way is about as insidious a thing, I think, that as you can do.
When I say, what did I generalize about?
Well, you said all cops and you have to apologize for their profession.
Yes, they should.
Okay, but I don't think so. I think public safety doesn't need apologies. I think that the cops who condone this, who watch this, the cops that participate in it, of course they have to be weeded out, dealt with, and oftentimes it's systemic, Jimmy.
It's not weeded out. Exactly what you just said. It's not weeded out. It's not a handful. It is systemic.
Well, oftentimes it is systemic, but even systemic, you can't generalize in that way about all cops, and that all cops are only doing this because they can't get a better job. I disagree with you. I know somebody who could have been an airline pilot, a commercial airline pilot, makes a lot of money, a lot of security, low insurance, all of that, chose to be a cop. Wanted to be.
What's wrong with that guy?
Well, because he liked being part of the community.
He liked red lights, cracking heads.
No, he doesn't like. He's a Democrat. He's a liberal. He works actually worked with Amnesty International after college. All of some people like doing that, and good people do that. It's the same thing that I always find myself defending politics. When people, they're all a bunch of criminals, they're all a bunch of crooks. They're not all a bunch of criminals, they're all a bunch of crooks. Those people pull the focus, and these people are pulling the focus. And you know what? Great that they're pulling the focus, because 30 or 40 years ago, 3 people wouldn't be sitting around having a conversation about what the police do.
The comparison that Jimmy made with politicians, I think a lot of people do go into politics thinking, I'm going to change the world, I'm going to represent my people, I'm going to represent my community, I'm going to help because there's a position of influence and legislation. And then they get in there and they find out what they're involved with. It causes them to maybe kowtow to banks, kowtow to rich people, because they have to, again, we go back to wolf-pack.com, because they have to keep on trying to get money just to get reelected. Yeah. I think a lot of people get into the police force thinking, I want to protect my community. Yeah, I hate bullies. I'm going to stop the bad guys. And a lot of them get in there, and then it becomes this cabal of people that really start watching each other's ass. And they feel like it's us against the community.
Yes.
And next you know, they have this mentality. When they went in there with good intentions, this mentality, we got to get them before they get us.
Well, Cecily McMillan is planning on appealing. Her lawyers say that there was evidence that wasn't even presented in the case because the judge refused to allow that testimony to be presented. For instance, there were other witnesses that were victims of abuse or allegedly victims of abuse from this specific cop. So they wanted to testify. The judge did not allow that to happen. So they are planning on appealing, but for now, she can expect being sentenced March 19th. We'll see how that plays out.
There's one more piece of info that I'd like to share. The guy, this cop who hit the woman and caused the problem, his name is Officer Bovell. And he was, in 2011, caught up in a Bronx ticket fixing scandal that involved some 500 officers.
So coast to coast, every cop in the country.
Some 500
That's what you said. Coast to coast.
Officers. So I'm just saying, when I say it's a half turn of the screw between a cop and a criminal, that's exactly what I'm talking about.